Welcome to this special edition of In the Labs with Todd. Back when my dad was a little boy, pretty much all he had to play with was wooden toys like this, and this was actually one of his. Now I see them in gift shops all over the place as executive desk toys and also at craft shows. In this video, I'm going to show you how I took the idea for this little wooden car toy from a drawing in the software all the way to cutting it to finishing it so you can make your very own. Let's see how I did it.
When I start a project like this, that's a multi-part project, I like to have one file set up with layers that break apart all the different pieces I need to build this project. In this case, you can see that I have 5 different layers, and each one breaks out a different element of the car. So we have the wheels, we got the outside red bits of our walnut car, our side panels. We've got our plywood layers, which are in black, a center plywood layer, which is in black again, and then our other pieces of walnut in the center here. When I started drawing this out, I wanted it to be able to be cut with a 1/4 inch end mill. So all the radiuses in here are set up for a 1/4 inch end mill. So you should be able to cut this job, any of the following 2 files, with a 1/4 inch end mill, as long as you go ahead and adjust the tooling. And also you may choose to change your material, so make sure you change your material setup as well and recalculate all of that stuff. So once I had this file set up, I took out all those different layers and broke them up into 2 different files. And one is called Wooden Push Toy Ply and Wooden Push Toy Walnut. So let's have a look at the plywood one first. If we open that up, you'll see that we're presented with the notes again, because this does have toolpaths, so make sure that you do understand what's written here and you do recalculate the toolpaths for your machine, setup, material you're using, and the tools you have on hand, and just click OK. So we have the center bit of plywood, we have the 2 outside pieces of plywood, and then we also cut our wheels out of plywood. Some of the important parts of this file are that these holes here are slightly larger than the pegs that I was going to use to hold or to help me line up the car parts or car panels together. The axle holes, this center circle is the actual diameter of the dowel that I'm going to use, but I offsetted that a little bit so that I had wiggle room for my axle to turn inside of my car. Now in contrast, the actual holes for the axle in my wheels are exactly the same size as my dowel. That way it would be a nice friction fit and I wouldn't have to worry about trying to glue those wheels together, although I probably would in the end. Let's have a quick look at my tool paths for this. Now I want to point out that I did use an up-down compression bit for the plywood. That way I get a nice clean cut. And top tip about these compression tools is that when you set up your passes for it, make sure that your first pass is equal to the depth of the upcut part of your cutter. That way you'll plunge in deep enough so you won't hurt the top of your material. So once I calculate all those, we can take a look at what that looks like. We'll preview all those tool paths. And you'll see that this is what we have in the end, and the molding toolpath cut very nice. That used a 1/4 inch ball nose end mill. We have lots of tabs here, and I've thickened up the tabs so everything holds in nicely. Now let's have a quick look at the walnut file. And this one is really quite basic. We use one cutter for everything. We have the same deal here with our axle holes, which I used a little bit of an offset. But what's kind of interesting about this is we have these holes right here. Because the material that I was going to use, the walnut that I was going to use, was quite thin, I was worried that it would end up bowing a bit. So I used some extra screws, but I had to have an idea where they were going to be so that I would miss where I was going to cut my parts and I wouldn't hurt my machine. So that's what these are for. This leaves the space or helps me to visualize where those screw heads are going to end up being. So let's have a quick look at those tool paths. We'll preview them all. And there we have it. We'll see that we use tabs to hold them in place. And that looks pretty good in the end. Let's have a quick look at those 2 files side by side here. On our right, we have the plywood, and on our left, we have the walnut. And you'll see where the dowel holes are. We have our axle holes that are cut all the way through all the parts, obviously, because the axle needs to go all the way through. We have some holes that are only cut halfway through. That way, there was enough of a hole there to grab onto a dowel to make sure everything was lined up properly. And you'll see that the side panels have those, and also the outside plywood parts have those dowel holes only halfway through, so we wouldn't see those on the outside of the car, and that works out really well. You'll notice that in the plywood sections I did use leads and ramps. That was wonderful. Becky told me about those and they worked out really well and ended up giving me some nice clean parts in the end. So let's just go ahead and save off those tool paths and go to the machine and cut this thing.
So our first set of tool paths, we're going to cut in this sheet of walnut. I'm going to screw it down with the locations that I pointed out in the software so that I'll avoid it with the CNC machine. So we'll drill those now. Okay, there we go. So now we're going to go ahead and mark the center. And that's the spot we're going to set our 0 right there. That worked out really well. The tabs held. I think that's good. Perfect. Okay, so this is the plywood we're going to use. I've already pre-marked the section of it that I'm going to use, and I also marked the center point. And we're just going to put that down on our wasteboard, and then we need to put in our new bit. Just gonna make sure the dowels fit in the holes. And look at that, perfect. Great, excellent. So we're gonna swap back in this other collet we had before, and we're gonna use the ball nose end mill to do a molding toolpath to make our wheels. Unfortunately, my tabs are a bit thin and I only used one of them. So in the file you guys are going to get, I'll put in 2 tabs and I'll make sure they're a little bit thicker. She won't have the same problem. If you want to make your very own little wooden car, why don't you go over to your V&Co account and download the free files. If you do cut it, we'd love to see what you make. Why don't you tag us in your social posts? If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you get to subscribe to our channel, please do. That way you'll get instant updates of anything new that we post. I really hope you have a Merry Christmas, and I hope that someone really enjoys the little car that you make.